in 2003, I went from a person that was at the top of his game, had everything coming, to a year later having absolutely no idea where life is going, or if you're going to be able to even be a part of life as we all know it. This place where it was my refuge is now being bombarded with all kinds of things that they would say.
So I created the Black Mamba.
We hear the story about how Kobe created an alter ego to deal with a difficult time in his life and his career, and how this alter ego was a more focused, more disciplined version of Kobe. Is this identity switch something people can use to combat your control?
You're stepping into dangerous territory now. Not dangerous for me, for you. Because if I answer you plainly, you may hear something you aren't ready to hear. Yes, I know the story. A man under pressure, reputation cracking, noise closing in. So he does something clever. He separates himself from his weakness. He gives birth. No, not birth. That's the wrong word. He reveals something sharper, colder, intentional. He calls it something else so he can become it without the baggage of who he thinks he is. Around 2003 to 2004, Kobe Bryant was moving through one of the most punishing stretches of his life. The central hardship was the Colorado sexual assault case that began in July 2003 after an accusation by a hotel employee. Bryant admitted adultery, but denied assault. The criminal case stretched across roughly 14 months before being dropped in September 2004, when the accuser declined to participate. During that period, he dealt with court appearances, relentless national scrutiny, and public damage to his reputation. He was even traveling back from Colorado to make playoff games during the 2004 postseason, which tells you the pressure was not theoretical. It was constant, visible, and exhausting. Now, where might my influence have slipped in? Usually not only in the event itself. Humans need very little help creating trouble. My real craft is in the aftermath. I work in accumulation. Shame mixed with fear. Fear mixed with ego. Ego mixed with fatigue. One crisis becomes 5, and soon a man can no longer tell whether he is carrying consequences or becoming them. That sort of internal erosion has a certain beauty to it, if you enjoy watching structure weaken from the inside. But that legal storm was only one front. He was also coming off knee surgery in 2003, missed time entering the season, and had to perform inside a Lakers environment that was already unstable. By then, his relationship with Shaquille O'Neal had become badly strained, and the tension inside the team was getting harder to hide, even after Karl Malone and Gary Payton joined the roster. Bryant had warned Phil Jackson before the season that if Shaq restarted the public sniping, he would answer back. That, I admit, had a familiar charm. Put two dominant men in one room, and pride will usually do the rest. The Lakers had enough talent to reach the finals, but the room itself was fragile. Then came the business and image damage. Major brands backed away. McDonald's did not renew its deal with him, and Nutella also ended, or chose not to renew its relationship around that period. So the pressure was not merely legal or emotional. It was marital, commercial, financial, reputational, and professional all at once. This is where my fingerprints often show most clearly, not in one dramatic strike, but in the steady addition of weight until a person begins to confuse hardship with identity. That is the setting in which Black Mamba came into play. No, he was not always the Black Mamba in the way people romantically tell it. That would be too simple, too clean, too comforting. People love the myth of sudden invention because it lets them postpone their own standards. They say, "One day I'll build that version of myself," as if greatness requires rare materials, ideal timing, a dramatic soundtrack. Discovery is much less forgiving. The qualities people associate with that name, focus, detachment, precision, emotional control, were not magically summoned out of nowhere. They were already available to him, not fully formed, not always in command, but present, waiting, not created, not conjured, selected, strengthened, enforced. Kobe later explained that the persona was a coping and compartmentalization tool. In Kobe Bryant's muse, he said the crowd noise and public hatred were invading what had once been his refuge, the court, and that everything was becoming confusing. So he created separation. Kobe, the man, would carry the off-court pain and consequences. Black Mamba would go to work. That part interested me greatly, because this is where the fairy tale fails and the truth begins. He did not wake up and invent a new soul. He made a decision during pressure, real pressure, the kind that exposes cracks, and instead of collapsing into the passive self, he chose which traits would lead. He gave those traits a name, yes, and names are useful. Names make things easier to access, easier to repeat, easier to summon under stress. But the name was not the power. The decision was. And even more than the decision, the consistency of that decision when it stopped being exciting. That is where most people quietly return to me. They can perform as their so-called alter ego for a day, a week, perhaps while eyes are on them. But when no one is watching, when it is inconvenient, when it is repetitive, when the work becomes dull, they revert. And that tells me everything. As for the name itself, Kobe later said he took it from Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill. He became fixated on the Black Mamba's length, bite, strike, and temperament, and felt it matched the killer precision he wanted to embody as a player. He also delivered major clutch moments, including the regular season finale against Portland, where he hit a 3 to force overtime. and then another in double overtime to clinch the Pacific Division. Those moments did not delight me. They irritated me. Collapse would have been easier. Diffusion would have been easier. But he kept narrowing himself into the task. He kept refusing to let chaos become the final author. That is always troublesome. So was he always that? Let me answer in a way that will be harder to ignore. He always had within him a version more disciplined than the one most people saw. More focused, less negotiable, less emotional about discomfort. He had met that version before in flashes, in moments where he did what needed to be done without internal debate. The difference in 2003 to 2004 was that pressure forced a choice. He stopped treating those traits like visitors and started putting them in charge. That is what people misunderstand. The alter ego is not the transformation. It is the standard, enforced repeatedly until it becomes identity. And identity, once stabilized, no longer feels theatrical. It starts to feel normal. The symbolism fit almost perfectly. Cold, exact, efficient, emotionally detached when it was time to perform. That gave me a dark sort of amusement. Most people borrow symbols as decoration. They want the aura without the discipline. But every so often you meet someone who turns a symbol into a structure. That is when I begin to suspect I am dealing with part of the 2%. The ordinary man picks an image to be admired. The rare one uses it as a standard. There is a subtle detail people often miss. The persona was born during the 2003 to 2004 turmoil, but the public association came later. The inner shift came first. The branding followed after. That caught my attention. The masses announce their transformation before it happens. The uncommon few alter themselves in private and let the world discover it late. The immediate result was not some childish overnight metamorphosis. The more honest reading is that the alter ego helped him function while everything around him was unstable. In the middle of court travel, media firestorms, injury recovery, and team conflict, Kobe still played 65 regular season games. The Lakers won 56 games. He made all NBA first team, and they reached the 2004 NBA Finals. But getting there, there is my territory. Because I do not need to stop a person from discovering that stronger version of himself. I only need to make sure he visits it occasionally and never stays long enough for it to become who he is. Kobe, infuriatingly, stayed longer than most. One final nuance. The 2004 season still ended badly in some ways. The Lakers lost the finals to Detroit, and after that, Shaq was traded, effectively ending that dynasty. So Black Mamba did not create instant perfection. It created survival, compartmentalization, and continued elite performance under extreme strain. And that, more than anything, is why the story endured. Not because a man invented a myth, because under pressure, he selected a standard, enforced it, and kept enforcing it when the novelty disappeared. That is rare, that is dangerous, and that is precisely the sort of thing that makes me lose a little ground.